God's chosen one. Listen closely. You were not born in the wrong era by mistake. Heaven doesn't operate on human error. The moment your spirit entered this world, it shook dimensions. You arrived with ancient codes written into your very being. Codes designed for now. What looks like misplacement is divine placement. What feels like exile is actually the stage of your emergence. You were never meant to blend in. You were born to stand out, not because of pride, but because of purpose. That feeling you carry, the ache, the heaviness, the inner knowing that says, I don't belong here. It's not confusion, it's confirmation. Confirmation that you're marked, hand-selected, a carrier of light for a world drenched in shadows. This era isn't worthy of your presence, and yet, God placed you here anyway. That's not rejection, it's a revelation. You were sent into a time that doesn't make sense to your soul because your spirit came from a place this world can't comprehend. The mismatch is the mission. The misfit feeling is the mantle. This generation wasn't ready for someone like you. But God didn't ask their permission. He saw the void. He heard the cry. And He answered with you. There's something holy about your discomfort. Something sacred in the way you never truly felt at home. You weren't made for shallow conversations, surface-level living, or small thinking. Your soul carries blueprints from heaven's war room. You don't just survive darkness, you interrupt it. You shake it. You expose it. And that's why the enemy tried to destroy you so early. That's why he sent wave after wave to drown your confidence. He saw the scroll written over your life. He saw your future before you did, and he feared it. But guess what? You're still here. That's proof enough that his attacks failed. The chaos you were born into wasn't an accident, it was the battlefield. And God knew exactly what kind of warrior to deploy. You, the one who questions everything, the one who sees too much, feels too deeply. You were born for such a time as this. Not before, not after. Now, Scripture says in the first book of Chronicles, chapter 12, verse 32, the sons of Issachar, who understood the times and knew what Israel should do. You too have that understanding. You were born with divine timing encoded in your spirit. You feel the shifting of ages before it happens. You know what must be done, even when no one else sees it. So what if you were born in the age of noise and distraction? You are the silence between the sounds, the clarity in the chaos, the ancient in the algorithm. You walk into rooms and atmospheres shift, not because of your words, but because of your weight, the weight of glory, the weight of history, the weight of divine appointment. You see things others ignore. You feel burdens they laugh off. You ask questions that silence the room, and all of it has made you feel misplaced. But misplaced things are often treasures hidden in plain sight. And treasures, they're not left lying around. They're stored, guarded, revealed in seasons. So you felt hidden, forgotten, overlooked. But hear this, heaven never lost sight of you. God didn't miscalculate. He preserved you, set you apart, delayed your unveiling until the earth was dry enough for your rain, until the famine was deep enough for your voice to matter, until the hunger was loud enough for your spirit to be heard. Stop wishing you were born in another time. That was never the plan. You are the ancient seed in modern soil, the torchbearer of truth in an age of lies. You were born now, on purpose, Your presence is prophecy. And if you've been feeling the tension caught between the world you see and the world your spirit remembers, it's because you're carrying heaven's blueprint inside of you. Comment 2929 below if your spirit just whispered, "This is me." N. And now that you know, what will you do with it? This isn't just revelation, it's responsibility. You were born in this era because this is the generation that needs what you carry. Your voice, your prayers, your boldness, your obedience. The world may call you misplaced, but heaven calls you positioned. Step into your role. Walk in your mantle. Rise as the answer God released into time. You are not early. You are not late. You are the fulfillment of prophecy, walking in flesh. Don't shrink back now. You were born in the wrong era. On purpose. For purpose. There's a reason your heart has always been drawn to another time. A reason you've looked around and felt disoriented. Like your soul was remembering something your mind couldn't explain. You've glanced at history books or old photos and thought, "That's where I belong." Not in a romantic or whimsical way, but with a strange ache that pulls from somewhere deep, somewhere eternal. You felt it, haven't you? That quiet knowing that you would have been more at home in a different century, that your values, your spirit, your rhythm seem out of sync with the noise of this age. And yet, you wake up every morning in this world, with its shallow pursuits, its blending speed, its counterfeit connections. You wonder why your soul feels out of place, like a candle trying to burn in a hurricane. But let me tell you something heaven has already declared. That ache isn't misdirection, it's evidence. You aren't just remembering a different time, you were sent from eternity into time, carrying the fragrance of ages past. You were not designed to adapt to a broken world. You were sent to confront it, and the pain of misalignment. That's the sound of your spirit refusing to conform. Some were born for comfort, but not you. You were born with a heart that remembers a world before the fall, a longing for what is holy and unshaken. You feel deeply because you're wired for eternity. Your discomfort isn't dysfunction, it's divine design. You don't long for the past because you're stuck. You long for it because a piece of eternity lives inside your ribs. You miss sacred things this culture has discarded. You crave meaning while the world chases distractions. You honor silence while others fill every gap with noise. That yearning is not weakness, it is spiritual memory. It is the voice of heaven echoing through your bones, reminding you that you came from a kingdom untouched by time. And while you carry that ache, you also carry the antidote. Even your sadness is prophetic. It reveals what the world has lost and what you were born to rebuild. The way you can't laugh at what others joke about, the way you grieve when truth is mocked, that sorrow is sacred. It means your heart hasn't hardened. Heaven still pulses in you. This is why you never fully settle. You can't fake peace where there's none. You can't force belonging where you've been set apart. That's not rebellion. That's remembrance. Your soul remembers holiness. It remembers glory. And it aches for the world to return. You were designed as a contradiction to your surroundings. Not to be louder, but deeper. Not to fit in, but to wake up those sleepwalking through a counterfeit life. The world needs your ancient wisdom, your steady convictions, your silence that carries weight, your presence that convicts. It was proclaimed in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 6, verse 16. Stand at the crossroads. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is. Walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. That's why you feel unsettled. You were made to walk in paths this generation has abandoned. You're not lost. You're standing at a divine intersection. You are not broken, strange, or too much. You are right on time, proof that God still plants eternity into time. Others like you walk the earth, hidden prophets, consecrated misfits, burning hearts in modern clothes. God has scattered his remnants, those who carry the memory of Eden and the fire of the future. You don't belong to this era, but you do belong in it. Not because you match it, but because you answer it. You weren't born to adjust. You were born to announce, another kingdom is coming. You carry echoes of the garden and whispers from the throne. That's why shallow things can't satisfy you. That's why temporary pleasure leaves you emptier, not fuller. You weren't made for survival. You were created for revival. You are not a child of convenience. You are a child of covenant. Heaven trusted you with this century, not because it's easy, but because it's disparity, and desperate times require holy disruptions. You are one of them. Don't wait for permission. Don't water yourself down. Don't bury what makes you different. What makes you different is exactly what makes you dangerous to darkness. The ache in your spirit is holy. Let it burn. Let it lead. Let it awaken the ones who have forgotten the sound of eternity. You were born out of time, to redeem time. You've always felt it, that invisible line between you and the rest of the world. People laugh, joke, scroll through life as if nothing is sacred. But you stand there, quiet, unsettled. It's not arrogance. It's not awkwardness. It's awareness. You see through things. You feel the weight behind moments. You read silence like a language. You've always known you were different. But for too long you tried to hide it. Blend in. Shrink. Survive. But the time for survival is over. There's a holy restlessness rising inside you because the real you can't stay caged much longer. God didn't mark you to mimic. He didn't anoint you to echo. You were never meant to be part of the noise. You were meant to break it. And that's why they never understood you. Why you were always too much, too quiet, too intense, too different, because your presence reveals what they've silenced in themselves. You are a mirror to the spirit. You stir things people try to forget. You walk into rooms and atmospheres shift, not because you try, but because you carry something. You don't just hold light. You are light. But light makes shadows uncomfortable. So instead of being celebrated, you were criticized, misunderstood, labeled, left out. It is written in the book of John, chapter 15, verse 19. If you belong to the world, it would love you as its own. As it is, you do not belong to the world. But I have chosen you out of the world. That is why the world hates you. End of. And that explains it, doesn't it? It's not that there's something wrong with you. It's that there's something holy about you. The world instinctively resists what has been set apart. Your rejection wasn't random. It was confirmation. Confirmation that heaven's fingerprints are on your life. And those who live in darkness cannot celebrate what exposes them. Your disconnection isn't a failure of belonging. It's proof of your selection. They didn't reject you. They rejected the part of you they weren't ready to face. Let this settle in your soul. You've been misunderstood because you're prophetic. You've been rejected because you're set apart. You've been quiet because your words are weapons. And weapons don't waste time on casual conversation. You weren't meant to be common. You were meant to be consecrated. Every room you enter, you carry spiritual voltage. That's why shallow people avoid you. That's why manipulators can't control you. That's why broken systems try to silence you. It's not personal, it's spiritual. Even as a child, your eyes saw what adults missed. Your ears heard what wasn't said. Your discernment made others uncomfortable. And your peace felt like resistance. You weren't being difficult. You were being different. That difference isn't dysfunction, it's distinction. So stop apologizing for it. Stop trying to explain it. Stop dimming the brilliance of what heaven placed inside you to make others comfortable in their compromise. You've been through too much to play small. You've cried too hard to pretend you're okay with mediocre. You've lost too much to waste what's left. It's time to come out of hiding. Not with noise, but with weight, with clarity, with fire. Because when you finally stand fully in who you are, hell trembles. You weren't created to simply make an impact. You were made to become a warning to darkness. You are God's disruption to every agenda that hoped you'd stay silent. Comment, set apart. Still, then, let that be your declaration. Though they left you out, talked about you, underestimated you, you are still set apart, still standing, still anointed, still chosen. You don't need a spotlight, you are a lampstand. You don't need a stage, you carry a kingdom. And the ones who overlooked you, they'll one day wonder how they missed what God was revealing right in front of them. So don't let the loneliness lie to you. Don't let the isolation twist your identity. Being hidden doesn't mean being forgotten. Being quiet doesn't mean being weak. You were concealed by God because real power is never revealed too soon. You were not buried. You were planted. And now, the soil around you is breaking. The pressure is producing something holy. You were never created to be palatable. You were crafted to be prophetic. And when you walk in rooms and people stare but don't know why, it's because their spirit feels what their mind hasn't caught up with yet. You don't fit in. Chosen one. You were designed to stand out. You've been carrying something for years that most people don't even recognize. An ancient weight. A sacred tension. You feel it pressing on your chest at night, whispering through the quiet of your mind, reminding you that you were never built to live an ordinary life. Others chase stability, predictability, and comfort, but you've always known. Somehow, that comfort would never satisfy you, because deep down, you know you were born with a mission. There's a certain loneliness that comes with this knowing, a heaviness you can't always explain. Conversations feel shallow. Social spaces feel like acting. Relationships often feel lopsided, not because you don't love deeply, but because you love differently. You sense things they don't. You discern what others ignore. You grieve what they laugh at. You weep for what they excuse. That's not weakness. That's calling. This calling has always separated you, not to isolate you, but to shape you. You walk with a burden others don't feel. And sometimes you wonder, why me? Why the constant inner wrestling? Why the deep sensitivity to everything around you? Why the spiritual fatigue? Even when nothing visible seems wrong, it's because you're not just living in this world, you're carrying weight for it. You're an intercessor in disguise, a spiritual warrior in everyday clothes. You look normal, But heaven knows you as a threat. The realm of darkness knows your name, not because you're loud, but because you're light. Light doesn't need applause. It simply exists, and everything else adjusts to it. This isn't something you chose, it's something you were born into. The cost has been great. People walked away. Opportunities slipped through your fingers. Doors slammed shut just when you thought you were ready. You wondered if you were cursed, but you were never cursed. You were called. God hid you. On purpose. You've asked why life hasn't looked like others. Why things that come easily to them require spiritual warfare for you. Why your prayers come from the belly while theirs skim the surface. It's because you've been trained differently. Heaven placed you in a different school, one of crushing, pruning, and preparation. Because your assignment is different. It is written in the first book of Samuel, chapter 16, verse 7. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. When, and because of that, God chose you in silence. He appointed you while others were being applauded. He anointed you in private, knowing the public would not understand your oil. You didn't fit their mold because you weren't made by their system. You weren't called to impress the eyes of men, but to carry the heart of God. You carry what others can't. Revelation, breakthrough, generational cries in your bones. You're not just someone who prays. You're an answer to the prayers of those who came before. The interruption in the bloodline, the redemption in the DNA. That's why the warfare has been brutal. You thought the isolation was punishment. It was preservation. You thought the silence was abandonment. It was alignment. God was stripping away every counterfeit comfort so that when He reveals you, there will be no confusion about the source of your strength. This process broke you open in places you never thought would heal. But that's where the oil flows. Not from strength, from crushed places. Your tears were not wasted. Your breakdowns were birthing rooms. Your lowest moments birthed the most sacred things inside of you. You carry depth because you've been deep places. In a shallow world, depth is disruptive. That's why you make people nervous. That's why your silence speaks louder than their shouting. You don't get invited to every table because you weren't made to blend in. You were made to overturn. Even now, heaven is stretching you, calling you to a level of purity that feels impossible in a compromised culture. You're not perfect. You've stumbled. You've wanted to quit, but you're still here. That's how you know you're chosen. Not because you're flawless, but because the fire didn't consume you. Rejection didn't derail you. Silence didn't steal you. You kept showing up. You kept worshipping. You kept going. Chosen ones aren't made in the spotlight. They're shaped in shadows, refined in deserts, anointed in hidden places. That's what has happened to you. You were not overlooked. You were preserved. And when God brings you forward, it will not be a promotion. It will be a release. Because what's inside of you is not for fame. It's for freedom. Freedom for the bound. Fire for the frozen. You are not just an individual, you are a vessel. And vessels must be emptied before they are truly filled. You've lived through things that should have broken you, yet here you are, not just breathing, but believing. Not just surviving, but stirring. Something inside you refuses to die quietly. Even after disappointment, even after betrayal, even after doors that should have opened, slammed shut, right in your face. You've walked through fires that left others faithless. Yet your soul still looks to heaven with defiance in your eyes and endurance in your spirit. That's not luck. That's grace. You see, God didn't just bring you through those dark seasons to leave you wounded. He brought you through so that wounded would become weaponized. Every scar you carry tells a story, not of defeat, but of deliverance. Your very survival is a sign that heaven still has a blueprint on your life. And if you've ever questioned whether you're really chosen, this is the proof. The enemy couldn't take you out when he had the chance. And if he couldn't destroy you then, he certainly can't stop what's coming next. The oil you carry was expensive. It cost you years of confusion, nights of praying through clenched teeth, silent seasons when God felt distant, but your faith stayed loud. People saw the surface, but they never saw the war it took to keep showing up. They never saw the nights you wept and the mornings you rose anyway. They don't know what it costs to carry fire and not be consumed. That's why this next chapter won't be flashy. It'll be faithful. You don't need applause. You need alignment. You don't need attention. You need authority. And you have it. Because you didn't steal your anointing, you survived into it. And now that you've been forged in silence, it's time for your sound to be heard. Not the sound of noise, but the sound of weight. The sound of someone who doesn't speak just to fill space, but to shift it. The sound of someone who's been hidden by God and is now being released by heaven. And when you speak, mountains will move. Not because your voice is loud, but because your presence is legal. You didn't place yourself. You were placed. But understand this, visibility comes with responsibility. When God raises you, He also anchors you. So don't lose your fire trying to impress the room. Don't dilute your oil to fit the mood. You didn't make it this far just to blend in. You're being raised for impact, not entertainment, not influence, impartation. Your life is meant to pour, not just perform. You carry a word this generation needs. Not because it's popular, but because it's pure. People are hungry, desperate, starving for something real. And God didn't preserve you just to tell your story. He preserved you to feed theirs. And when your voice carries weight, those who once overlooked you will try to study you. But don't get distracted by their curiosity. Stay loyal to your calling. You didn't come this far for validation. You came for victory. The prophet Elijah spoke as recorded in the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 7. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. And yes, you are that jar. Cracked, pressed, weathered by the years, but still carrying treasure, still chosen, still burning. And the fact that God still speaks through your life after all you've been through, that's a miracle in motion. So here's what I ask. If this word has hit you deep, share it. Don't keep what heaven is doing in your life to yourself. Someone else is standing where you stood. Someone else is breaking where you once bled. Let this be the moment that stirs their spirit, the way it's stirring yours right now. Hit like if your spirit feels seen. Subscribe if you know this isn't just content, it's confirmation. And if you feel led to give, to sow into the soil that fed your soul, the door is open. You're not paying for a message, you're planting into a movement. Because what God is building here isn't personality, it's prophetic. It's not about hype, it's about healing. And the truth is, the message you just received wasn't written. It was released, crafted in secret, birthed in intercession. and delivered to you at the exact time you were ready to receive it. Heaven doesn't waste scrolls. And God didn't send this word to your feed by accident. You're standing in the middle of divine appointment. So as you rise into this next version of yourself, do it fully. Don't shrink. Don't stutter. Don't delay. The oil is real. The weight is undeniable. And the moment is now. You've survived the cave. Now walk in your call. You've waited long enough. The delay wasn't denial. It was divine construction. God wasn't just preparing your path. He was preparing you. The silence, the waiting, the stillness, all of it was doing something deep, not to hurt you, to root you, so that when the doors open, your character won't collapse under the weight of your calling. Others seem to pass you. Get promoted, get chosen, get celebrated. You stood in the background wondering, God, did you forget me? But he didn't. You weren't forgotten. You were forged, set aside so that what is built in you cannot be shaken. And now, the time of hiding is shifting. Something in the spiritual atmosphere is changing. You can feel it, can't you? A stirring, a rising, a tension between what has been and what's about to be. That pressure is not punishment. It's the sound of prophecy approaching its appointed time. We find in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it linger. Wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." That vision inside you, the one you've nearly given up on, the one that felt too big, too holy, too impossible to ever be fulfilled in your lifetime. That wasn't a dream, it was a download. It didn't come from your imagination. It came from heaven's calendar. You've been carrying that word like a pregnancy, through trimesters of testing, through cravings for clarity, through morning sicknesses of discouragement. But even when you couldn't see the evidence, the seed was still growing. God doesn't plant without intention, and he doesn't anoint without assignment. The wilderness didn't kill you, it clarified you. It stripped away what was false. It taught you to hear God without a microphone. It taught you to worship without a stage. It taught you to weep in private and rise with authority. You stopped chasing platforms because you finally realized your posture was your power. Now, you walk differently. You discern more quickly. You no longer force what doesn't flow. That's not pride. That's purity. It's the fruit of delay, the reward of surrender. And heaven saw every hidden yes, every silent fast, every tear that watered dry places. That's why this moment is sacred. Because it's not about stepping into favor, it's about stepping into fulfillment. But understand this, fulfillment doesn't always look like fanfare. Sometimes it looks like finally walking with peace, finally hearing God clearly, finally trusting your own discernment, finally obeying without needing explanation. That is maturity. And maturity always precedes movement. You are not where you used to be. The doubt doesn't hit like it once did. The fear still whispers, but it no longer rules you. You've walked through fire and came out refined, not ruined. And that, chosen one, is the real testimony. Not just that you made it out, but that you came out still believing. The ones who are truly anointed rarely announce themselves. They are often mistaken, misunderstood, mislabeled. But heaven keeps its receipts. Every sacrifice, every surrender, every seed sown in silence. The world may have forgotten, but God records it all. And now, it's time to make room. Not just outwardly, but inwardly. Make room in your mind, in your schedule, in your spirit. Because what's coming next will require capacity. Elevation always demands expansion. You can't carry the next level with last season's habits. This next move won't be sustained by performance. It must be stewarded by presence. So clear the clutter, clean the altar, prepare the atmosphere. Because rain is coming, it won't be a sprinkle. It will be a downpour of clarity, of acceleration, of restoration, of divine recompense. The years that felt wasted, heaven kept count. And now restoration is in motion. Comment 4444 if your spirit recognizes that this moment is personal. 4 is the number of foundations. This is not hype. This is establishment. God is not just gifting you the next level, He's rooting you into it. This is about stability, authority, kingdom structure. No more wandering. No more wondering. This is the hour of divine settlement. You're not just getting what was delayed, you're getting what was preserved. And when it comes, it will come fast, sudden, swift, but not sloppy. God is not the author of confusion. What He releases will bring order, not chaos. And you'll know it's Him, not because of how it looks, but because of how it sits in your spirit. Peace is the passport of heaven. So be still, but ready. Rested, but alert. Don't try to force the door open. Don't manipulate the timeline. Just align. God has not forgotten the promise. You haven't missed your moment. You are exactly where you need to be for what's about to unfold. The vision is for an appointed time, and the clock in heaven just struck now. You've carried the weight of not belonging for so long that you began to wonder if maybe something was wrong with you. You've questioned your wiring, your instincts, your emotions. You've watched others blend easily, laugh effortlessly, follow trends without hesitation. But you hesitator. You pause. You feel. Because you were never built for superficiality. Your soul is too deep for shallow waters. You were made to disrupt, not entertain, to discern, not perform. And while others rush to be seen, you've spent most of your life in the shadows. Not because you're weak, but because you are watching. You don't just look, you perceive. You don't just speak, you wait for the weight. You don't just live, you carry. You carry vision. You carry tension. You carry fire. And fire doesn't make sense to ice. That's why you've confused people your whole life. They couldn't figure you out. So they labeled you, called you antisocial, too intense, too emotional, too strange. But deep down, you knew it wasn't about you. It was about what you carried. You carry something they weren't ready to confront. You carry sacredness in a world obsessed with spectacle. You walk in reverence in a culture built on mockery. You treasure silence in a society addicted to noise. And while you tried to suppress it to fit in, God never let you forget it. He kept nudging your soul back toward who you really are, because you're not common. And what is uncommon will always be misunderstood. But you were never assigned to the masses. You were assigned to moments, to divine intersections, to lives, waiting for someone who remembers heaven to show up in the chaos. Scripture says in the book of Exodus, chapter 33, verse 16, How will anyone know that you are pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth? That's it. What distinguishes you is not talent or image. What marks you is His presence, His hand on your life, His whisper in your ear when the world is shouting its lies. You are different because you carry Him. This is why you've struggled to settle. You can't plant yourself where your roots won't grow. You've tried to force it: jobs, friendships, churches, identities, but something in you always resisted. Your inner compass doesn't follow convenience, it follows truth. The dissonance wasn't failure, it was direction. God was using your discomfort to lead you into identity. He was using unrest to call you deeper, not into isolation, but into consecration. There's a difference. Isolation is loneliness without purpose. Consecration is separation for a holy one. And you were set apart from the beginning. That's why you've always felt older than your age. Why you've moved through life with a sense of urgency others didn't understand. While they laughed through seasons, you were weeping. Not because you were depressed, but because your spirit could sense what was unseen. You were carrying burdens that weren't even yours, interceding in silence. No one taught you. You were born knowing. And that knowing hasn't left you. It's grown sharper. And it's not something you shake off. Because this isn't a personality trait, it's a spiritual imprint. You don't just have a gift. You are carrying a mantle. And mantles are costly. They require you to walk differently. While others play, you're pulled into prayer. While others sleep, you lay awake, not from anxiety, but from assignment. You're not weird. You're wired. Wired for something eternal. Wired to respond when heaven whispers. You weren't made to fit in. You were made to reshape what's broken. You don't need the crowd's approval. You carry the cloud's authority. And though it's been lonely, it's also been holy. Because in the wilderness, you didn't just find solitude, you found the voice of God. You learned to walk without applause, to pray without outcome, to worship without reward. You found your strength in resilience. And now that foundation can't be shaken. You no longer crumble under misunderstanding. You no longer chase affirmation. You've surrendered to the fire. And that surrender makes you dangerous not to people, but to principalities. People may not fully see you, but hell does. And it shudders every time you stay faithful. You were not born for this age by accident. You were not built for this battle by chance. You are not misunderstood because you're weak. You are misunderstood because you're marked by heaven. Set apart for now. There are some people who walk into the room and instantly draw attention. Their charisma captivates. Their confidence is loud. Their presence demands acknowledgement. But you've often been the quiet one, the observer, the one whose presence doesn't fill the room with volume, but with weight. You may not always be seen, but when you are, something shifts, because you weren't sent to impress. You were sent to impact. You don't need to be the loudest voice in the room, because the spirit you carry already speaks. You walk in with authority that doesn't come from training, popularity, or position. It comes from pain, from obedience, from walking through fire with no spotlight and still choosing not to burn out. You carry something that can't be taught. Heavenly residue. That's why you've always felt slightly offbeat with the world's rhythm. While others were chasing platforms, you were learning to pray. While they chased applause, you were cultivating presence. What they mistook for your delay was actually your refining. God was doing something in you that couldn't be rushed, because what you're called to carry can't afford cracks. There is a heaviness that comes with being called, a weight that the world doesn't understand, but heaven does. And it's in that weight that you've learned stillness, patience, discernment. You've learned not to react quickly, not to move just because others move. You've been trained to wait until heaven releases a sound, and then you move with clarity, not chaos. This is the reason some doors didn't open, not because you weren't qualified, but because you were overqualified for the wrong room. You were never meant to sit at every table. Some tables were too small for the mantle you carry, some rooms too noisy for the clarity you bring, and some connections too shallow for the depth of your spirit. You weren't excluded, you were protected. God is strategic with his vessels. He does not cast pearls before swine. And you, chosen one, are per material, refined, not in appearance, but in essence. You've been crushed to release something rare, something heaven sealed. That's why your story is laced with delays, rejections, misplacements. All of it was the chisel in the potter's hand. Every time you were overlooked, heaven whispered, "Not yet." No. Every time you were misunderstood, heaven answered, "Not them." Every time you were broken, heaven declared, "Now watch what I build." And that's exactly what's been happening. Brick by brick, prayer by prayer, surrender by surrender. Not a monument to your strength, but a dwelling place for his. You've become a resting place for the presence of God, not because of your perfection, but because of your posture. You said yes when no one was watching. You stayed faithful when no one celebrated. You gave when you had nothing left but obedience. And that's why there's a depth in your eyes, a stillness in your spirit. You're not moved by trends, not shaken by storms, because your roots don't grow in shallow places. You've been planted deep, and when God plants deep, it's because he intends to grow tall. The elevation you're stepping into isn't about visibility, it's about responsibility. God is trusting you with more, not because you shouted the loudest, but because you listened the longest. And in your listening, you were formed. You didn't get bitter in the silence. You got built. It is recorded in the book of Proverbs, chapter 20, verse 5. The purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. And you, chosen one, have been drawing from deep wells. That's why surface-level living exhausts you. That's why empty words drain you. You need truth, oil, revelation, and not just for yourself, but for others. You've been called to draw out the deep things in people, to call forth what they've buried, to be a mirror to what's been hidden inside them all along. But here's what few understand being a mirror means. You reflect before you're recognized. You illuminate others long before anyone shines a light on you. And that's okay, because your reward was never recognition. It was release. God didn't call you to be famous. He called you to be faithful. And the deeper the call, the quieter the preparation. You may not have the microphone, but you carry the message. You may not wear the robe, but you carry the authority. You may not have the crowd, but you carry the cloud. And the cloud will always lead you pillar by pillar into exactly where you're meant to stand. So keep walking, keep carrying, keep stewarding what no one else sees, because heaven sees, and hell fears, And time is catching up to what God placed in you long ago. You've been walking through life carrying more than anyone realizes. Not just physical responsibilities, but spiritual weight, emotional burdens, unspoken warfare. There are moments when you've smiled on the outside while internally screaming for clarity. Nights where you felt the shift in the spirit but couldn't find words for what you were sensing. Days where your discernment picked up on things no one else seemed to notice. And it made you wonder, am I just too sensitive? No. Chosen one, you're not too sensitive. You're spiritually tuned. You're picking up frequencies that others have learned to ignore. You feel grief in laughter. You sense war in silence. You see patterns that others dismiss as coincidence. You feel the tremble in the atmosphere before the storm arrives. That isn't paranoia, it's prophetic awareness. You're not just present, you're positioned. Planted by heaven in environments where your very presence disrupts comfort, exposes motives, reveals spiritual agendas. And while others treat life casually, you move carefully, deliberately, prayerfully, because something inside you won't let you sleepwalk through this world. That's the mark of one who's been chosen to see. God has always dealt with his messengers differently. He never called his prophets to be popular. He never trained his warriors with ease. And he never releases his anointed without cost. What you've paid in silence, he will redeem in authority. But understand, being spiritually awake in a sleeping world will always come with tension. That tension is holy. It keeps you from settling. It keeps you alert. It keeps you available to heaven's leading, even when it costs your comfort. You've walked into places and instantly felt heaviness others didn't acknowledge. You've stood in conversations where your spirit whispered, "Something's off here." You've pulled away from people everyone else chased. You're not judging. You're guarding. You've learned to protect your peace. Because your peace is prophetic. It's how God speaks to you. It's how heaven signals red flags in a world that keeps saying green light. And when your peace leaves, you know, the presence just shifted. There's a reason you can't fake your way through environments that others thrive in. You weren't wired to perform. You were designed to perceive. And that perception, though it's made your life complicated, is also what's made you dangerous to darkness. We find in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 3, verse 17, "Son of man, I have made you a watchman for Israel. So hear the word I speak and give them warning from me." That's what you are, a watchman. You see what others miss. You hear what others block out. And sometimes that means sounding the alarm, even when no one wants to listen. Sometimes it means interceding when you don't even have the full picture. Sometimes it means feeling the weight of battles that aren't even yours to fight because you've been given the burden of sight. And though it's cost you friends, comfort, and rest, you still obey. That's what separates the gifted from the trusted. God doesn't just use the talented, he uses the obedient. And you, chosen one, have obeyed even when it hurt. Even when you couldn't explain it, even when it made you look foolish. You've walked away from things you wanted because heaven said no. You've stepped into things that scared you because heaven said go. And in doing so, you've become something rare in this generation, a person who can still hear. So many have gone numb, hardened, desensitized. But your ears remain open, your heart remains soft, and your spirit remains tuned. That is not a weakness, that is your assignment. You are the one who will not sleep while the enemy creeps. You are the one who will still pray when the crowd loses focus. You are the one who still feels. You're not broken. You're burdened. Not fragile, faithful, not dramatic, designed. So if this entire section has sounded like your life, your journey, your unseen burden, declare it with boldness. Comment, I stay ready. Say it not just as a phrase, but as a prophetic stance. You stay ready, not for fear, but because you were born for alertness. You were born to watch, to sense, to stand when others sleep. And even when no one sees your vigilance, heaven does. Even when your silence looks like absence, hell knows your name. And even when you doubt your role, angels still recognize your position. You are not forgotten. You are on assignment. You are the watchman on the wall. And you stay ready. You've felt it building inside you, this quiet pressure, this holy unrest. It's not anxiety. It's activation, a divine signal that you can't stay still anymore, that your voice can't remain buried, your oil can't remain sealed, your gifts can't stay dormant. You've been hidden long enough, obedient long enough, quiet long enough. Now heaven is releasing a sound over your life that says, it's time, not for performance, not for platform, but for purpose. And purpose has nothing to prove. It just moves. It doesn't ask for attention. It makes impact. And when you carry real oil, you don't have to advertise it. People know. Atmospheres know. Even hell knows when someone truly anointed walks in. That's why you've been fought so hard. Because what you carry can't be duplicated. It wasn't bought. It was birthed. Through nights of weeping, years of waiting, layers of surrender. You've been tested not just in life, but in silence. In places where only heaven witnessed your faithfulness. You've prayed when you felt nothing. You've worshipped with an aching heart. You've believed even when everything said stop. That kind of obedience produces something this world can't manufacture. Wait. And wait is what this generation is starving for. They don't need another influencer. They need intercessors. They don't need more noise. They need authenticity. And that's why God has kept you in the fire longer than others. Because you weren't created to blend in with empty sound. You were called to carry a holy echo. Now, the echo is rising. There is a generation looking for what you've stewarded in private. A world hungering for what you've grown in hiddenness. People don't even know why they're drawn to you. It's not charisma. It's consecration. It's not hype. It's healing. And healing doesn't come from perfection. It comes from presence. Scripture says in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, verse 35, be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning. That's what heaven is saying to you now. Be ready, not just in public, but in private. Stay lit not with hype, but with holy fire. You're not waiting for opportunity, you're preparing for activation. The lamp isn't just for your visibility, it's for direction. It shows you where to step, and others how to follow. You are not just being awakened, you're being armed. So take a deep breath. Chosen one. You're not being pulled into the spotlight, you're being positioned for impact. Everything you've walked through wasn't just for you. It was for every life you're about to touch, every heart you're about to reach, every soul that's going to recognize their reflection in your story. This is more than inspiration. This is impartation. And if you feel that right now, if this word has resonated in places no one else has ever touched, then don't scroll past it like another message. Let it mark you. Let it ignite you. Let it move you. Because when you move, darkness loses ground. If this has spoken to your spirit, hit the like button as a prophetic response, not for me, but for the message. Every click becomes agreement. Every share becomes a seed. Share this with someone you know is carrying something heavy but holy. Someone who's been hidden, weary, almost ready to quit, but still standing, still called. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. Not because it helps me, but because if this is your tribe, your language, your kind of fire, this is where you stay fed. God is raising voices for this hour. And this space, it's not content, it's confirmation. And if you feel led to sow, to support what feeds your spirit, the door is open. This message was never written to go viral. It was written to go vertical, straight from heaven, to the remnant, to the ones who still burn when others go cold. You're not paying for a word. You're partnering with what God is building, because this isn't personality, it's prophetic alignment. This isn't entertainment, it's equipping. And if it stirred something deep in you, don't ignore it, because what's coming next will require your full yes. No more hesitation. No more doubting your voice. No more comparing your anointing to others. You've been given your fire for a reason. You've been preserved, not passed over, prepared, not punished. And now, the trumpet is sounding. The cloud is moving. The oil is flowing. You're not just called, you're commissioned. Walk forward like the earth has been waiting for you. Because it has. There's a reason you've never been able to settle for surface. Shallow conversations leave you starving. Empty environments leave you drained. Casual faith leaves you aching. Because your spirit was not made to float, it was made to dig deep. You were created to search out the hidden things of God, the treasures beneath the noise, the wisdom buried under pressure. You crave what others avoid. Stillness, clarity, conviction. You don't want entertainment. You want encounter. And that desire, it didn't come from culture. It came from calling, because the ones God calls deeply, He stirs early, before the applause, before the recognition, before the world calls your name. Heaven already has. That's why nothing ever fit quite right. Why you've moved through seasons with an ache you couldn't explain. You were present, but never planted. You were functioning, but not fulfilled. You smiled, but part of you kept whispering, there has to be more than this. End quote. And there is. But more never comes without surrender. Because the ones who carry spiritual depth are always led through spiritual depths. And that's what you've endured. Deep water training. Places where no one could reach you. Places where God was the only voice left. Places where prayers weren't pretty, but real. Where obedience wasn't glamorous, but necessary. And through it all, something unshakable was forged in you. You don't run from pain anymore, you walk through it. You don't panic in silence, you listen. You've come to realize that the wilderness wasn't punishment. It was the proving ground. The fire didn't come to destroy you. It came to distinguish you. And that distinction has cost you relationships, opportunities, identity. But it's also positioned you to see what others miss. You no longer need the approval of people who don't carry your calling. You've tasted heaven's presence. And now, Nothing else satisfies. It is declared in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 15, verse 16, "When your words came, I ate them. They were my joy and my heart's delight. For I bear your name, Lord God Almighty." Allah, that's your hunger. That's your craving. The word of the Lord is not just something you read, it's something you consume. It nourishes your soul. It confronts your comfort. It realigns your steps. While others chase quotes and quick fixes, you've craved the voice behind the veil. You don't just want insight, you want instruction. And because of that, you felt the weight of holiness. Not perfection, but purity. A call to walk upright when others bend. A nudge to stay quiet when others retaliate. A pull to be set apart when fitting in would be easier. You've wanted to compromise, but something inside you simply wouldn't let you. Not because you're better, but because you're chosen. And chosen vessels don't get to blend in. They bear the burden of clarity. You've walked into places and instantly sensed what was off. You've tried to explain it, but words fell short. Because it's not just discernment, it's intercession. You're carrying atmospheres inside of you, carrying burdens for people who don't even know they're being carried. And while they rest, you wrestle. While they forget, you fast. While they scroll, you stand in the gap. This is the kind of calling that costs you. You miss out on trends, parties, conversations, but you gain something priceless. The nearness of God, the ability to hear Him when the world goes loud, the sensitivity to notice His whisper in the chaos, the posture to pause when He says, "Not yet." Nah. And that's what makes you different. You don't move with the majority. You move with the wind. You don't base your next step on logic, but on leading. And that's not weakness, it's spiritual maturity. You've learned to wait. You've learned to walk away. You've learned that just because something is available doesn't mean it's assigned. And now, you're standing at the edge of something sacred. Not because you forced your way here, but because obedience brought you here. And it's here, right at the intersection of surrender and purpose, where God breathes new instruction. You don't need another sign. You need to keep walking. Not recklessly, but reverently. You've already proven that you'll move. When He says move. And now, He's watching to see if you'll stay. When He says stay. Because the mature aren't just tested by storms, they're tested by stillness. Can you remain faithful in the pause? Can you remain yielded when the spotlight dims? Can you keep the altar burning when no one else shows up? You've been doing it. Quietly, consistently, honorably. And heaven has noticed. You are not overlooked. You are overwatched. Not by algorithms or eyes, but by the one who measures faithfulness in secret and rewards openly. You are not behind. You are becoming. You are not small. You are strategic. And just because the world hasn't seen it yet doesn't mean it's not already happening. You've made it through seasons that were designed to destroy you. Not survive, you destroy you. The enemy didn't just want to distract you, he wanted to dismantle you. He wanted your faith fractured, your mind confused, your spirit numb. And for a while, it almost worked. But you're still here, still standing, still praying, still sensitive to the whisper of God, still refusing to harden your heart. You didn't make it through that fire just because you're strong. You made it because you're chosen. And heaven doesn't lose what it has marked. Every time you felt abandoned, you weren't. You were being rearranged. Every closed door was a redirection. Every tear was counted. Every delay was divine. You didn't miss it. You weren't disqualified. You were in training. And now that training is producing something eternal in you, there's a difference between people who have opinions and people who have oil. The former talk. The latter transform. And the oil you carry wasn't given, it was crushed out of you. Through pressure, through misunderstanding, through loss. You didn't choose this path to be relevant. You chose it to be righteous. And righteousness always offends darkness. That's why you've made people uncomfortable. Not because you're rude, but because what you carry exposes what they're trying to bury. And it's not your job to soften that truth. It's your job to steward it. You walk into rooms and shift the atmosphere, not with your words, but with your weight. There's a weight on your life that didn't come from titles. It came from the tomb. You've died to things others still crave. And that death, that's why resurrection follows you. There's a remnant rising who are not interested in applause. They are interested in assignment. And you are part of that remnant. You're not waiting for the next revival. You are the revival. Carried in human skin. Sent into a generation that is starving for substance. And you bring it not because you're perfect, but because you're positioned. Scripture declares in the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 11, the Lord thunders at the head of his army, his forces are beyond number, and mighty is the army that obeys his command. And obedience has always been your posture, even when you didn't understand, even when it cost you connections, even when it made no earthly sense. And now that obedience is turning into movement, doors are opening not because you knocked, but because you endured. People are watching, not because you advertised, but because you remained. You've been faithful in the silence. Now heaven is releasing the sound, but let me be clear, this sound isn't for show. It's for souls. It's not hype. It's holy. And if you sense that shift, if you know this word has pierced something real in you, then respond with boldness. Not for vanity, for victory. Comment the number 707 below. This is not superstition, it's alignment. 707 is a prophetic marker. A sign that you've come through the fire, paused in the process, and are now stepping into divine motion. You're not in random transition, you're in strategic repositioning. When you type this number, you're not chasing signs, you're confirming surrender. It means, I've been refined, I've been hidden, now I'm ready. Type 707 to say, Father, I align with your timing, not mine. I move when you say move. I stay when you say stay. Use me for your glory, no matter the cost. No, and when you do expect something to shift, expect distractions to lose their grip. Expect confusion to break. Expect clarity to come. Expect things that didn't make sense to start aligning, because you didn't survive to go back to normal. You didn't endure to play small. You've been carried through the fire to now become a carrier of fire. That's what this generation needs. Not more opinions, not more experts. It needs burning ones, bold ones, obedient ones, carriers of oil. Forged in the quiet, refined in the delay, released in power. That's you. You are not one of the crowd. You are one of the called. You didn't lose your fire, you became it. You didn't lose your voice, it was being trained. Now, type 707. Say it with your fingers. Seal it with your faith. You are not wandering. You are walking in alignment. What heaven designed for you is not just coming, it's activating. It's unfolding with divine timing. Opening doors no man can shut. Calling you to walk fully in who you were born to be. And the time to move is now. You've never fit in, and that's the point. Because if you could blend into the culture, you'd be blind to your assignment. If you could adapt to their noise, you'd lose your ability to hear heaven. That dissonance you've felt since childhood, it wasn't dysfunction, it was distinction. You were never meant to be like the rest. You were always meant to carry something otherworldly. The world taught you to doubt it, to mute it, to label it as too much or too intense. But heaven never questioned it. Heaven designed it. That intensity in your spirit is not an accident. It's a signal, a frequency that connects you to the invisible war raging all around. And it's that spiritual sensitivity that makes you dangerous to darkness. You've walked through life as a misfit, but spiritually, you're a marker, a boundary line in the earth that says, no further. A lighthouse in a generation lost in fog. A voice crying in the wilderness, not for attention, but for alignment. And alignment always begins in the unseen. That's why so many of your battles were internal. Before you ever faced external opposition, you had to survive inner war. The war between your old nature and your new identity, the tension between the way things are and the way heaven says they should be. You felt torn, stretched, stripped, and yet you never snapped, because God built you differently. You weren't made for comfort, you were made for confrontation. Not with people, but with patterns, with principalities, with powers that operate in darkness and expect no resistance. But then you showed up. You, with your worship. You, with your discernment. You, with your refusal to bow to what is convenient. And though you've doubted your strength, you've proven it again and again. You didn't walk away from the fire, you walked through it. You didn't abandon your post when the warfare intensified. You dug in deeper, prayed harder, listened longer. That doesn't mean you didn't cry. That doesn't mean you didn't question. But even in your questioning, you stayed anchored. It is declared in the first book of Peter, chapter 5, verse 10, and the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. Holland, that promise is not just poetic, it's prophetic. Restoration isn't coming just to bless you, it's coming to stabilize you. You've endured what others collapsed under. You've stayed soft in a world gone cold. You've remained watchful when others grew dull. And now, the grace that called you is also strengthening you. But not just for your sake. You are a carrier of clarity in a clouded age. A living reminder that not everyone bowed to BAAL. That not everyone traded truth for trends. That not everyone has gone numb. You still feel. You still weep. You still watch for the movement of heaven while others chase momentum. That's why you've been preserved. Because when God wants to disrupt darkness, he doesn't use the popular, he uses the pure. The ones who've walked through wilderness without selling their voice. The ones who could have compromised, but didn't. The ones who said yes when no one else was looking. And now, the ones who said yes in secret are being trusted with assignments in the open. But don't mistake this season for promotion. It's not about platform. It's about position. You're being placed with precision, moved with strategy, hidden in plain sight, but about to be revealed in divine timing, not for applause, for assignment. And this assignment, it's not flashy. It's foundational. You are a root system in a generation that chases branches. You are depth in a world addicted to height. You are oil in a time obsessed with polish. And that might not get you invited to every room, but it gets you invited to the right ones. The ones heaven opens. The ones no man can shut. The ones where glory, not ego, fills the space. And when you enter those spaces, you won't have to perform. You'll just have to be, because God didn't call you to impress. He called you to carry. Carry the weight. Carry the truth. Carry the fire. And you will, because you've been prepared for this, not just by trials, but by trust. Heaven trusted you with the hidden things. Now heaven is trusting you to release them. You are not just seen. You are sent. You weren't sent to decorate the world. You were sent to disturb it. To trouble systems that have grown comfortable in compromise. To rattle foundations that were never built on truth. To wake up souls who've learned to sleep through sirens. You didn't ask for this role, but it was written into your DNA. You are a disruptor by divine design. That's why you've never found peace in pretending. Why faking a smile has always cost you more than showing the storm. You were wired for authenticity. The raw kind. The kind that makes demons uncomfortable and broken people breathe again. The kind that doesn't require a spotlight to shine. You have carried burdens silently, but they've never been unnoticed. You've cried prayers that no one ever heard, but heaven recorded them all. Not a single tear you've cried was wasted. Every moment of ache, every night of confusion, every day of pressing forward when nothing made sense, God saw all of it. And He called it seed. And seed never stays buried. It dies, then it resurrects. That's where you are right now, not in delay, but in the resurrection stage, the breaking ground, the cracking open, the holy pressure that comes when destiny starts to move beneath your feet. You don't feel stable because God is shifting the soil beneath you. What looked like loss is about to reveal itself as launch. But resurrection isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it looks like isolation, like everything around you is fading just as something within you is growing. Sometimes it feels like death because it is. The death of the old version of you. The small version, the safe version, the silenced version. God is burying that version so He can raise the real you. And when you rise, you will not look like what you walked through. The fire refined you, but it didn't define you. The valley tried to name you, but heaven already called you something else. You are not a survivor, you are a standard bearer. You don't just get through storms, you shift the atmosphere inside them. It was proclaimed in the book of Isaiah, chapter 59, verse 19, "When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him." End quote. And you are that standard. You are the response of heaven in the middle of chaos. The one raised up, not by algorithms or applause, but by anointing. You don't carry hype. You carry weight. A holy heaviness that can't be explained, only experienced. That's why they don't understand you. You were never supposed to make sense to people who serve the system you were born to disrupt. Your purity makes compromise feel exposed. Your truth makes deception uncomfortable. Your peace makes chaos unravel. You walk differently because you were formed differently. Others were trained in crowds. You were trained in caves. Others learned to perform. You learned to pray. And because of that, you are anchored, not tossed by emotion, not shifted by opinion, not diluted by trends. You are stable because your roots run deep. That's the secret behind your silence. While others shouted, you dug. While they climbed for position, you descended into presence. While they competed for influence, you cultivated intimacy. And intimacy will always outrun image. Always. That's why you carry revelation that you didn't study for, insight you didn't earn, words that don't sound like yours because they aren't. They're borrowed from heaven. You are not a generator, you are a conduit, a vessel made available, a life poured out. And when God finds someone willing to stay empty, He keeps filling them. You've given more than you've received, loved more than you've been understood, released more than you've retained. But none of it has been in vain. You've been pouring into others while God's been pouring into you. Even in your exhaustion, you've been effective. Even in your silence, you've been shaping things. Even in your weakness, you've been winning battles, not because of might, but because of surrender. And that surrender, it's your secret weapon. It's what makes heaven back you and hell fear you. You don't need a stage. You just need space. And wherever God gives you space, something shifts. You won't always be the loudest voice, but you will always be the most rooted, because while others chase moments, you carry momentum, not emotional hype, spiritual continuity, the kind that doesn't fade when the music stops, the kind that doesn't die in the dark. You're still here, you're still burning, and you're just getting started. There's a fire inside you that you didn't start and no one can put out. It wasn't lit by a sermon or a moment of hype. It was ignited in the secret place, in that raw, quiet place where no one was watching, where it was just you, your tears, your questions, and God. That's where the flame began. And it's only grown stronger since you've walked through storms that should have drowned you, but they didn't. Not because you're invincible, but because you're immovable, rooted, anchored, not in yourself, but in something eternal. You know what it's like to be held by grace when nothing else makes sense. You know what it's like to be refined without recognition, chosen, but not always celebrated, obedient, but not always understood. And yet, here you are, still burning, still believing, still becoming. You don't carry normal fire, you carry holy fire. And holy fire doesn't just warm, it consumes. That's why everything that can't go with you has been falling away. God is not punishing you. He's positioning you. He's removing distractions, false connections, and unnecessary weight, so that what remains is pure, aligned, ready, because something is about to be entrusted to you that will require your full yes. You're not being called to walk in circles, you're being commissioned to build something eternal, to create what's never been seen, to plant in hard ground, to speak where others have gone silent, to carry His fire without apology. And the world may never give you permission, but heaven already gave you authority. It is written in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 8, "Freely you have received, freely give." That's the code of this calling. You've been filled so that you can pour out, not to gain influence, but to release impact. The anointing on your life is not a trophy, it's a tool. Not for applause, but for assignment. And the more you give it, the more heaven entrusts you with calm. But understand, this level of obedience comes with cost. People may not see the sacrifices you've made, the hours you've prayed, the moments you've sown in tears, but God sees it all, and He rewards in ways the world never could. He repays in favor, in insight, in supernatural strength. And when God backs a person, no system can stop them. That's why I want to invite you into something more than just watching, participating. If this message is speaking to your spirit, if you feel that flame stirring in you, don't just receive it in silence. Tap like as a prophetic act, not for validation, but as a sign of agreement. You're saying, yes, this word is for me. I'm not just inspired, I'm aligned. And then share this with someone who carries fire but needs fuel. Someone who's been doubting, but is about to rise. Someone who's been questioning, but still burning. You never know what a simple act of obedience can set into motion. The ripple effect of one shared word can touch lives you'll never meet. And if this message has become food for your soul, subscribe to stay connected. Not to a brand, but to a blueprint. We are building a space where oil flows, where remnant voices rise, where what's pure is preserved and what's holy is honored. And yes, if you feel led to sow, to support the release of words like this to more people across the world, there's room for that. 2. Not out of obligation, but out of overflow, because when something feeds your spirit, it's powerful to invest back into it. You're not buying words, you're partnering with the word as it goes forth to heal, deliver, and activate others. But whether you give or not, know this: you are seen, you are called, you are covered, and the fire inside you is no accident. You were born to burn like this. You were born to shift rooms, not with noise, but with presence. You were born to carry truth, not diluted, but divine. You were born to walk through flames and come out brighter, not bitter. You've been trusted with fire. Now, it's time to move with flame-born clarity. So, before you leave this space, don't just scroll. Respond. Hit like. Share this message. Subscribe to stay near the flame. Sow where you are being fed. And if this word met you where no one else has, let us know in the comments. Write just this: still burning. Laven, not for hype, but as honor to God, to your story, to the flame that's never gone out, even when the world tried to smother it. You are not finished. You are not forgotten. You are fire walking, oil carrying, glory marked, and chosen. Let the fire speak. There are moments in your journey where heaven goes quiet, not because you've been abandoned, but because you're being trusted. Trusted to walk by what you heard in the last season. Trusted to steward the assignment, even when affirmation is absent. Trusted to keep building, even when the blueprint feels blurred. You know this space well. The in-between, the stretching, the questions that echo louder than answers. You've asked God, "Where are you?" And the silence nearly broke you. But it didn't, because deep down, something told you, He's still here. Not loud, not visible, but present. And that presence is what carried you. You've learned to discern God not just in His voice, but in His weight, in the stillness that steadies your shaking, in the peace that passes understanding, in the quiet nudge that says, "Don't quit now." While others sought lightning, you listened for the whisper, and that whisper shaped you. That's what makes you rare. You don't chase signs, you follow presence. You don't need constant reassurance. You've been trained to trust the unseen. Because faith isn't proven when you feel full, it's proven when you feel empty, but still obey. And that obedience, it's sacred. It's what separates servants from spectators, vessels from vessels without oil. You don't move to be seen. You move because you're sent. And that's exactly what you are sent. But being sent doesn't always feel supernatural. Sometimes it looks like long obedience in the same direction. Quiet persistence. Daily yes. Decisions that add up to generational impact. That's the path you've been on. Unseen by most, but undeniable to heaven. Scripture declares in the book of Hebrews, chapter 6, verse 10, God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown to his people. That's his promise to you. He has not forgotten your labor, the love you've sown when no one said thank you, the prayers you released when no one saw the battle, the weight you carried in secret for people who may never know. He sees it all, and he will not forget. In fact, what feels like delay is often divine preservation. God has kept you back, not to punish you, but to protect what he's placed in you. You're not late, you're on reserve. And what's been reserved carries weight. It moves differently. It's not rushed. It's revealed in time, not before. That's why others may seem ahead, but you're still on time. Because what you carry isn't fragile, it's foundational. It's not meant for fast applause. It's meant for long-term impact. God isn't building a moment with you, he's building momentum through you. Legacy, stability, a life that teaches others how to stand when everything else falls. That's your anointing. Steadiness. In a generation of hurry, you carry depth. While others shift with trends, you stay anchored in truth. That alone makes you a threat to the enemy. Because nothing terrifies darkness like a believer who refuses to move unless God speaks. And that's what you've become. You don't react, you respond. You don't follow hype, you follow the cloud. And though this may have cost you connections, attention, and open doors, it has earned you something no platform can offer: authority. You walk with weight now, not because you're perfect, but because you've paid the price. You've said yes in the dark. You've stayed when it hurt. You've let him strip you of everything that didn't belong, not to humiliate you, but to consecrate you. And the fruit is already forming. Not all of it is visible yet, but heaven sees the roots. Deep, unwavering roots. The kind of roots that survive storms. That anchor movements that hold up houses of glory. So don't despise the pace. Don't curse the slowness. Don't think for a second that nothing is happening. You are being solidified, sealed, sent in silence. Because God doesn't just raise voices, he raises pillars. And pillars don't collapse when the winds shift. They stay. They hold. They carry weight without demanding credit. And the ones who carry weight without recognition are the ones God trusts with revelation. You are one of them. You are not just passing through history, you are shaping it. With every choice to stay clean, with every decision to forgive, with every silent act of obedience, with every hour spent on your face instead of chasing influence, you are becoming unshakable. You are not waiting for revival. You are becoming the kind of person revival can rest on. And when the cloud moves again, you'll be ready. Not because you're eager, but because you're established, rooted, refined, ready not just to speak, but to stand. You were never meant to be ordinary. Even when you tried to blend in, even when you silenced your fire to protect fragile spaces, it never worked. Because what you carry refuses to be contained. It leaks through your presence. It vibrates through your words. It shifts atmospheres whether you're trying or not. You've always felt the pull of something deeper, even in your lowest moments. Something inside you said, "This is not where the story ends." You've stood on the edge of quitting, yet something invisible anchored your feet. That something was never your strength, it was your calling. Callings like yours are rarely loud. They begin in silence, in the middle of childhood wounds, in the ache of being different, in the weight of discernment that arrived long before you had language for it. You were seeing what others ignored, feeling what others dismissed, carrying burdens without knowing why. That wasn't coincidence. That was early evidence of purpose. And purpose doesn't wait for perfect conditions. God didn't choose you after you were clean. He chose you while you were still in the fire. He marked you in the middle of the mess. Not because you were ready, but because you were willing. You may have felt weak, but he saw someone available. Someone who wouldn't sell out for applause. Someone who could carry the oil and still walk in humility. It is spoken in the second book of Chronicles, chapter 16, verse 9. For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. Oh, that verse is your mirror. His eyes searched, then stopped on you. Not because you had it all together, but because your heart said, "Whatever you want, Lord, I'm yours." And now, that commitment is being strengthened, not with hype, but with heavenly weight. You're not just being touched, you're being trusted. There is a remnant rising, and you are among them. A breed that doesn't bow to convenience, that doesn't crave attention, that doesn't compromise for a seat at tables where Jesus isn't welcome. You'd rather be hidden in the will of God than be seen in a system that suffocates your anointing, and that makes you dangerous. Because you won't be bought. You won't be silenced. You won't be baited by distraction or discouraged by delay. You know too much. You've seen too much. You've tasted something eternal, and nothing else satisfies anymore. The glitter of the world can't grip someone who's been in the glory. You carry a holy stubbornness now, a sanctified refusal to quit. You're not here for the crowd, you're here for the cloud. You move when heaven moves. You stop when heaven stops. You speak when heaven breathes. You act not on impulse, but on instruction. And while others are performing, you are piercing. While others rehearse lines, you release living water. You don't memorize fire, you carry it. Because fire is not a formula. It's not a script. It's not a soundbite. Fire is what happens when a surrendered vessel meets the breath of God. And you've been breathing with him for a long time now. So no, you are not average. You are not misplaced. You are not behind. You are hand-selected. You are carved from another cloth, formed in another realm, raised in private for a public move of God. And that move, it has your name written into it, not as decoration, as foundation. You are not here to add to the noise. You are here to announce the shift, to usher in what's pure, to preserve what's holy. to raise what has been lowered, to call back what's gone numb. And you will do it not by striving, but by standing, by being the kind of person who hosts God, even when no one's watching. Because when God finds someone who can carry him privately, he releases them publicly, and not a moment before. You've passed the test of obscurity, the test of silence, the test of delay. You didn't just survive, you stayed soft. You kept your heart clean. You kept your altar burning. And that posture is what's positioning you now. Not for influence, for impact, not to make noise, to make room. And now, room is being made for you, not because you demanded it, but because God designed it. You are not rising to prove something. You are rising to fulfill something. A divine blueprint, a heavenly burden, a mission that didn't begin with you and won't end with you, but requires your obedience right now. So step into it, full-hearted, clear-eyed, fire-marked, no fear, no apology. Heaven trusts you, hell dreads you, earth needs you. Chosen one. You've made it to the end of this prophetic journey, but this isn't the finish line. It's the launching point. Every word you've received wasn't entertainment, it was impartation. You didn't just read, you were readied. You weren't just stirred, you were set apart. And now, you carry something eternal. So don't walk away like nothing happened. If your spirit burned while reading, respond to that fire. These kinds of words don't come to fill time. They come to mark time, to divide who you were from who you're becoming. Hit the like button if you felt heaven speaking directly to you. Not because it helps the algorithm, but because it's your way of saying, I receive this. I honor this. I'm stepping into this. No. Comment below. I choose my season. No. Declare it publicly. Let the spirit realm know. You're not wandering aimlessly, you're walking in alignment. Every comment builds community. You never know who you're encouraging by simply speaking up. Share this message with someone who needs it. Someone who's called but questioning. Someone whose fire is flickering. You could be the link that reignites their assignment. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to stay connected. What God is doing in this space is more than content. It's a movement, a sanctuary for burning ones, a home for misfits marked by heaven. This is where revival roots before it roars. Lastly, if this word has fed you, consider sowing back into it, not out of pressure, but out of partnership. When you sow into oil, you don't just support a voice, you invest in a sound being sent to the nations. Chosen one, heaven has spoken. Now earth waits for your response. Stay burning, stay obedient, stay available.